All right, this is the network service of the Africa's largest TV network, that's the NTA, and you're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and time to commence our conversation. And just before we bring in our guests, let's listen to our backgrounder today, as compiled by Abdul Salam Jubril. And of course, the topic is restoring peace in the Southeast. We're looking at the second part of our conversation.
What had happened in the Southeast recent days, is very pathetic. Most of us are not very comfortable because our people are not really showing concern. When you see a political leader who come on the national TV or press conference and say they don't know who is behind this, we must have to identify our problems. If we don't identify our problem, then there's no way we can solve our problems. Ebubago was set up unceremoniously prior to this serious hit in the Southeast, when they perceive that these people are becoming unbearable to them. They rose from a meeting and proclaimed Ebubago to secure the Igbo land. And today, I think nobody can barely heard about that Ebubago by the governors, the Southeast governors.
In my state, within the last 6 years, when we did the analysis of federal allocation, both for state and local government, in 6 years, Abia State has received 803 billion. And there is it does not reflect in that environment. Hence, when I'm talking about leadership, I'm not talking about federal, because the two things that happen here is that it is the failure of the immediate leadership in the Southeast. And when this failure occurs, they begin to play propaganda with it, begin to redirect the attention of young people, making them feel that it was someone out there who is supposed to have taken care of their needs that have not done it. Yet these young people see these people driving in big cars. They know some of these people had nothing. They become big now. They had no factories. They don't have no mechanics farm. But on the commonwealth of the people, they are feeding fat, taking care of themselves, sharing money. Nothing is reflecting on the environment.
The Nigeria as an institution, with all the intelligence know-how, must carry out a discreet investigation to be able to unravel who are behind this, what is their interest, and above all, if it implies application of force, because so somebody who is gone with gun that you cannot listen to you, if it entails application of force equivalent to what is being said, to ensure that order is restored.
All right, those were excerpts from our conversation yesterday. Two of those guests are still with us for the continuation of the conversation. But we have another guest who is here in the studios with us. Is Paul Andrew Gwaza. He's of the Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution here in the Federal Capital Territory. Paul Gwaza, pleasure to have you this morning.
Thank you. You're welcome, sir.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor, let me just to you the pleasure of introducing the other guests who, of course, were part of the conversation yesterday on this program. Ambassador Obizaba Chiemelu, Director General, Strategic Planning and Implementation, and SNDIBO General Assembly Worldwide. He's also an ambassador of peace to the United Nations. He was part of this conversation yesterday. Thank you, Ambassador, for joining us again.
Thank you very much, and good morning.
All right, great Imo Jonathan from Abia State. He was also here yesterday, public relations and media consultant. Great. Many thanks to you for coming back to continue our conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right, gentlemen, once again, our delight to have you join us since we had the first part of the conversation yesterday for around about 30-35 minutes. There have been at least two significant developments. The Southeast governors met in Enugu, that's the capital of the old Eastern region and now capital of Enugu State, and they came up with their resolutions. And also the Inspector General of Police has redeployed a new commissioner of police to Anambra State, which of course has lately witnessed an orgy of violence. Other parts of the southeast have also been impacted. But let's begin today's continuation of the conversation, as it were, with Paul Gwaza. Paul Gwaza, I mean, tell us, what is your own take on what has been happening in the southeast, the bloodletting and the economic shutdown from time to time?
Yeah, we have followed the trajectory of the happenings in the southeast Nigeria, and interestingly, we know that all over the country there had been agitations and perceptions of each other across the country. And I think it's a fallout of the nature of our politics. Now, if you look at it carefully, it is how we perceive one another as Nigerians, and the way we then run our own politics as a nation. Generally, we know that after the 2015 elections, we know that the Easterners went the other side, with some few members of, or few Southeasterners voting for the current government. And then we know also that after the formation of the government, there are perception that of non-inclusion in that government, in this present administration, especially by Southeasterners. Then immediately come the issue of the closure of the border, and the Easterners felt that most Easterners are traders, obviously, and they felt that this policy of this government was not favorable to them. And while we were battling with this issue of the closure of the border and the economic hardship, they followed the activities of the herders across the country, which most of the Easterners felt it is encroaching into their own territory. We know that, first of all, there was this kidnapping in the southwest, kidnapping across northern Nigeria also, kidnapping in eastern Nigeria. But again, it depends on how you perceive all this happening across the landscape. If you listen to the narrative of whether it is IPOB, listen to the narrative of Yoruba Nation, it boils down to the fact that we are trying to protect our land. This is our homeland. But again, this discussion about the homeland, even the others are also craving for a homeland. If you do an analysis of the wider Sahel region, you know that there is a broader craving for a homeland. The Fulanis also are craving for a homeland. So then it begins to bring up the whole things that have been happening. How do you then manage all these things that is brewing up? Then policies came about, starting with Benue State with the anti-open grazing law of Benue State. It happened also in Ekiti State, and then across eastern Nigeria also, governors begin to enact laws that will then curtail this mobility. But again, the IPOP had heightened their own agitation. Eventually, we know that Nnamdi Kanu was arrested at the point, granted bail at the point, and then eventually he was out of the country. So these agitations continued, but again, if you listen to the narrative broadly speaking, it is heightening about whether we are being included in this governmental arrangement. And if it is not properly, if people perceive that they are not included in a government arrangement, the natural thing is that they want to express themselves somehow. This expression could be milder, peacefully. It could be violent, which we are seeing. But again, the bottom line is, you know what is, if the industries have collapsed in a country called Nigeria, where we are churning out graduates every year. In fact, if you go to the law school, you wonder what cases are they going to prosecute, because you see thousands of lawyers graduating. You go to the universities, they are graduating, and all these young people are coming out. There's no industry. Government agencies, ministries, and departments are saturated. The businesses are no longer tenable. The economy has crumbled. And as I rightly noted earlier, the borders are closed at a point, and so even the transaction, we know that the Okirika business was one of the things sustaining some of these young men. It was no longer tenable for most of them. So this thing has actually heightened. But again, I know that the security agencies have been doing a lot of work. At the institute level, we have gone last year, we have done a study of the zonal study to look at the conflict dynamics across the 6 geopolitical zone. And if you look at what is happening in the southeast, the report clearly points to the fact that there is heightened unemployment. Young people are not engaged. And so therefore you sell anything to them, they buy into it. They can easily be manipulated by the political elites. They can be manipulated by young people. They celebrate anybody that is willing to engage them, is ready to give them anything to survive. So we need to respond to these issues. Number one, the economic issues. Number two, we need to respond to the issues of participation in governance at all levels. If you go to most of our local governments, they are not working. And we need to ensure that they are working. They are the closest we would do. If you remember, one of the policy of the federal government with respect to direct labor, you know, the clamor, even at the political, elite level, it was who will then provide the list of these people that will be engaged. So it is actually a big problem. The young people need to be engaged. And how do we go about it is indeed another discussion that we need to have.
That's one area I would like for you to speak on, because from the perspective of peace and conflict resolution, you've been able to analyze the dynamics of the agitations in the zone. And from what you say, it's all about inclusion. Inclusion in the diverse areas. The responses so far, do you think they are addressing these issues? The governors had met. There was a peace security summit, which gave birth to the Ibibago, military outfit, and there have also been other, consultations. Do you think these responses have addressed the issue or addressing the issues?
To be fair to what is happening to the southeast, we have gone past, even at the international level, gone past the level of this discussion about security. Security is not about physical security alone. You need to look at the broad discussion about even violence itself. Violence is not about physical violence. There is the structural violence which is fundamental. It is this structural violence that sustains the cycle of physical violence. And this structural violence, so it's not only about organizing a conference to discuss on having a regional outfit or a state outfit or strengthening the police or the military, deployment of the military. I have rightly identified the issue of the economy of the people. The economy of the young people. We know that the Southeasterners are entrepreneurial people. They are hardworking people. And so you need to create the environment for them to do their businesses. Now, once you choke that environment and they no longer feel free to do what they are doing, then you naturally give them alternatives. What are the alternatives? For them to do things that they are not conversant of doing it. So I think my own take is that we need to look at the broad discussion about human security, the protection of the people, and in protecting these people, we need to look at their social security. And employment is very, very critical. And creating that environment for them to do their business, and Igbo people are all over this country. In fact, the Igbos in southeastern Nigeria are not up to the Igbos in other part of the country. There was a discussion in the office we had, and if you look at, in fact, the Igbos have integrated into the broader Nigerian society than any other ethnic group. You find Igbos all over Nigeria. You hardly will find us in Igbo land. Yeah, so I think we need to create the space for them to express themselves. They need Nigeria more than we need Nigeria. That's the truth of the matter. Igbos need Nigeria more, the Southeasterners need Nigeria more than the Hausa man need Nigeria, more than the Igbo man need Nigeria. Because if you go to, for instance, you go to the streets of Southeastern Nigeria, you hardly will meet the percentage of the people you meet are larger Igbos. But if you come to, say, in Jos, you will meet more Igbo people and Yoruba people, and so the cosmopolitan nature of Nigeria is actually reflected in the presence of the Igbos in our communities in Nigeria. So my point is that apart from the fact of inclusion, which has been heightened in the media, we need to ensure that we enhance the economic well-being of our people. We need industries to begin to function, and that should be strategic, because right now what we are facing is that there is heightened insecurity in the region. So, but then you need to begin to provide avenues to entice and lure people to go back to economic enterprises. I think it's far better than trying to use the hard power in ensuring that they are not carrying arms.
All right. Thank you, Paul Gwazade, for your perspective. I'd like to bring in Great Imo Jonathan at this point. Just before we get into the details of what can and should be done in seeking to understand the current conflict in the Southeast, what are the wider dimensions that we should all understand at this stage and factor into whatever measures are required to contain the insecurity in that part of the country?
Thank you very much. In fact, I appreciate the analysis of Mr. Gwazo, because it touches on some of the issues I pointed out yesterday. And that is why I always say in solving such problems, we must understand the social structure that is required to bring solution. For example, you can't be talking about insecurity without having the statistics and understanding of unemployment rates in the Southeast, how many are engaged, talking about the educational rates in the Southeast, talking about even the quality of education. For example, the education we give to our children these days are not fit for purpose. People just go to universities, acquire certificates, but they found no job for them. Some of those jobs actually are being done by foreigners like Chinese in this country, road constructions that should have been part of avenue for engaging our young people. We have not given them the skill that will make them fit for purpose. So we have to consider all of those as part of the wider dimension, the kind of education we give. What is the employment rate? Even where we are trying to, intervene through social engagement, social intervention projects like what we have now, the federal government social intervention project. Last 2 years, I went to my state and I was appearing on radio program. I discovered that there are actually 16,000 young people who were already engaged in the social intervention program who were supposed to be earning 30,000 naira. Though the larger population in the state did not know about it, but the state government was managing it on behalf of the federal government. Number one, the federal government was intervening, but the way and manner it was taken or being handled, it did not appear that such things were going on. And also in doing that, I like the analysis that have been done by our brother here, because he takes what they call the psychology of the people there into cognizance. Igbo man does not behave exactly like the other part of Nigerians. You must understand how they behave and relate to things. For example, I would have even said, instead of giving people cash in the Southeast, there are businessmen in the Southeast who are industrialists who have started out at a level. If you are giving them money as a kind of matching grant or investment in their business with a mandate to engage more people, to make them more productive, instead of giving people cash. Because, for example, when you just dispense cash where it's not productive, you are creating poverty, you are not alleviating poverty. So you go and say, every month I pay these people, but there is no return on investment either for federal government or the state government or the immediate environment. If you are going to be spending, in fact, when this program was being initiated, I remember I was on air with Laolo Akonde. I said, if you are going to invest 500 billion annually, imagine if you extend it to 774 billion, 1 billion per local government. You find industries where in the environment people have comparative advantage. You begin to invest in those things. I would prefer you give an Inewi man, an Umayama, an Abama money to say, okay, can we invest in your business to the tune of 5 billion or 1 billion if your investment is already worth 1 billion. That means we share your company 50-50. But you have to engage this number of persons. We need to know your management output. And that will mean that we are going to create employment. We are going to become more productive. When our young people are being engaged, then we are creating wealth for ourselves. We are solving economic problems at the same time, also solving security problems. For example, most of those people who are involved in this violence are people who really don't have anything doing. Any young man who can wake up in the morning and go to his office or go to a factory to work will not have time to go out there to carry gun or to carry cutlass or to do any of those damages that we are seeing in the southeast. So that's the economic dimension. Also, in the broader perspective, let's be truthful. I like our brother because he was fair in discussing the issues that are also that has to relate with how the policies of government affects this issue. Do you know that many people don't know that Southeast has potential for seaports up till now? But over the years, I have read severally where they keep saying Southeast is landlocked, Southeast is landlocked without factual evidence. But there are possibilities for Azumiri seaport. There's a possibility for a seaport between Imo and Anambra. Yes, and we don't need federal government money to do it. You can engage the people to say, bring investors, do it so that the economic activities that people go outside to pursue can begin to take place there and create more employment and create more engagement. And this sense of business, this recognizing that these people need the avalanche of space to operate will go also a long way. But also, furthermore, like I said yesterday, the failure of leadership of the immediate, the leaders of the Southeast. Okay, yesterday they had the meeting. You said you were having stakeholder meeting. The Igbo youth leaders were not there. I expected you to have the major political leaders, their youth leaders involved in that meeting. Community by community, when you have these meetings, you talk above the people said, you say you are having consultation. The next thing is that you will not allow this, you are not allowed this. You're talking like a military government without engaging the people. How do you percolate this information? How does it trickle down? When you finish having your meeting in Enugu, you fly back to Abuja. The next thing you send the army, you send the police, and every young person there who has not been able to get the right information, give it to them. Okay, as I'm talking to you, do Southeast have the economic master plan for themselves? These leaders, do they have economic blueprint from local government to federal? And again, let me also say the other dimension to it, which federal government of Nigeria must take cognizance of. One of the issues you have in the South is this: INEC, police, and the army, which are federal institutions, get and interfere too much in the politics of Southeast. And the people governing the Southeast, the choices of the people. Then beyond that, when these things are done, the Southeast politicians, they have fought themselves, when they have done fighting themselves fiercely, and they know that in some cases they are illegitimate, the next is do they invite federal might in order to pressure their people and impose themselves, impose their own activities. That is when they govern, they don't carry the people along. So federal government's failure in this area is that the federal institutions, which are supposed to be used to buffer the people, are actually given to the political leaders for their own selfish protection and not for the people. Let me tell you now, you are sending the army to the east. Remember that historically, between 2003 and 2006, the military were in the east. A lot of young people died. But it was the political elite that invited them. Even I told people that the military, when they came for Operation Python, were invited by the Southeast leaders, not by federal government. Every time you see military intervention in the South, actually the South, in fact, they were the ones to first prescribe IPOP, not the federal government. Go and check the history. Why do they do these things? When they become afraid of engaging their people and opening up to their fellow, they bring federal institutions to begin to war against their own people. They are alienated from their own people. No state actors will issue stay-at-home order, and it will be obeyed. Even with the avalanche of soldiers, army, DSS, police, and whatever in the Southeast, these people will obey. In most cases, it's not out of fear. I said it's voluntary. Don't let anybody deceive you, because the people feel alienated. So to an extent, the war going on in the Southeast is the war of leaders against their own people. Yes, they bring EFCC, for example. I've said the other day, you go to Southeast, all you are looking for is small boys carrying laptop around. But I've just mentioned yesterday, a state in the Southeast in the last 6 years have collected 803 billion. The EFCC is not interested in how those monies are deployed in the environment to create jobs, to create infrastructure, playgrounds, schools, and all of those things. We used to have technical schools in the Southeast. Before now, my cousin once, who went to technical school, left technical school straight, and people were calling him engineer because he was a perfect electrical engineer even before he went to university. Where are those technical schools? Who is funding education? Even the infrastructure, the quality of schools, buildings you see there now, it's not something to, to cherish. So we have these dimensions to look at. And in solving this problem, like he said, I also said yesterday, kinetic and non-kinetic approach must be involved. Apart from stopping the ongoing violence, you have to go back to the background. The issues that led to this violence. These children were not just created. They are product of our failure. It's like when we started talking about Northeast. For several years, we hear 10 million children out of school. We see those children going around with plates begging food, and we thought it didn't concern us. We didn't think that it meant anything. As long as we were okay, as long as we are closer to people in government, or we're in government, we get the money we share. A lot of people who became billionaires in this country never had factories, they don't have farm settlement, there is nothing to attach to their name in terms of productive engagement. But they became rich, sharing government largesse and acting as if those who are neglected meant nothing. Now, this is the outcome. And if we don't do anything about these social issues, then we'll continue to have this problem. These are the other dimensions I think we should be looking at.
Great. Thank you. You've raised quite a number of very fundamental issues. I would like to draw the conversation to Ambassador Chiemelo, because the immediate reason for our conversation is restoring peace. And I'm wondering how the leaders, the political leaders in the Southeast, will sit comfortably in the comfort of their homes in Abuja, in Port Harcourt, in Lagos, in Kano, or any other place outside the Southeast region, and watch the fabrics of that region, taken down completely. And Johannes Zendibu is there. What has been the role of Johannes Zendibu in trying to, restore peace, in bringing peace, in calling the youths together and saying, look, and intervening in what is going on? We see the Afenifere, we see the other, traditional rulers from the other regions play active role. What has been the role of the Johannes Zendibu in all of this?
Thank you very much. The situation we find ourselves is very pathetic, and nobody is happy about the situation in the Southeast. Just like great people have said earlier, our people are hardworking people. Sometimes you don't need the man to go to university for him to achieve his goals. If you take through the record of an average Igbo man, from 15, 16 years, he has gone to boy. It's only in the Igbo land you see people go to serve their master. And after a few years, the master will give him a token. I will start with that token and become a billionaire. So what will happen now is that we have issues. The process that produces our political leaders are very flawed. And any process that is flawed cannot produce a credible leaders. Most of these leaders we are talking about is not our leader. It's not elected by the people. We have two antecedents within 2 days now. One was launching of Operation Golden Dawn. The second is the resolution from the Igbo leaders, so-called Igbo leaders in Enugu. They have passed a series of this resolution, but they have not been able to put into action after passing the resolution. After going through the closed-door meeting, they will come out and read their communique, and they will fly back to their various comfort zone and keep quiet, and things will continue to go that way they are going. The approach for solutions is bottom-up approach.
Was Johannes Zendibu part of was Johannes Zendibu part of the meeting yesterday?
They are not engaging the real people. Look at the kind of people you have there. These are people who cannot even talk to the community. We have advocated for synergy. They're not talking to the youth. They're not talking to the youth leader. The local government is no longer functioning within this southeastern state. Even part of the country, not only within the southeastern state. Because the governors have made themselves an emperor. They don't want anything to work. Everything has to do on their table. The local government chairman does not even have, sometimes they don't even go to office. They don't even know how the local government office is. They go there once in a while because they have no functions. That they are not autonomy. Okay, the president have also issued an order that the allocation should go straight to the local government. I could remember 1999, 2003, 2007. Local government chairman were like independent. They were reaching out to the people because they are the closest to the people. Okay, you have such meeting in Enugu. No local government chairman was in the attendant. Who are the people? Who know the people? Some of the traditional rulers, the key traditional rulers who know the community. These are not people coming from Sky Blue. They are people from various families. People know them. So for you to be able to connect to this, to solve the problem, you must engage the people. The people must be seen to be part and parcel of the process of solving the problem. You don't solve your problem in your house and impose it to somebody in the house. Engage people. Constructive engagement will bring a constructive resolution. If you don't engage the people, there's no way you're going to have a peaceful resolution.
Yes, I know, but what is your strategic, exactly, what is the Ohaneze Ndigbo strategic planning to resolve what is happening?
Our strategic planning is in coming days, although you heard what happened in Kano, we in Kano will have different factions that disagree within themselves. Last 2 weeks I was in Kano and bring them under one umbrella. In the southeast, we're beginning to talk to the youth leaders. In Abia State, in Anambra State is almost the theater of the war, because that is where election is just less than a month, or within a month, election is upcoming. And these people have told you, do not campaign. Nobody is campaigning in Anambra State. No political party have their sticker in their vehicle. If you have your sticker, or PDP or APC, APOGA, it will be burned down. They told you no election, and nobody is doing anything. So what we are doing is to begin to sensitize our people, because we know that the problem is information. Information management is key. These people are being fed with bad information, wrong information. So they're acting based on the wrong information. And for us to deal with the issue and get to the root of the problem, we must begin to, like what Ohaneze Ndigbo is doing, is to sensitize the people, engage our youth, meet them with various different groups, which we have started. And gradually, in the next 1 or 2, 3 weeks, you will begin to see the result. You don't stay in Abuja and press a resolution or invite a military to come. It's not military approach. Okay, let's look at what happened in Kogi State here. We all remember what happened there in terms of security. What the governor did was bottom-up approach. Before, you can't drive from here to Okene. You'll be kidnapped. But the governor took proactive action by making the local government local government chairman, the chief executive officer of your local government, making the traditional ruler of your community as a chief security officer of your community, empowering and additional out more fund for the local government to be able to secure the locality. If anything happens to your local government, I hold you accountable. And it works. That is why you see relative peace in Benue State today. I give it to kudos to that governor Yahya Bello, because he did
Kogi, not
Kogi. Bello, yeah, Kogi. That's what I'm saying. Sorry, Kogi. You see what happened to Kogi State? You can't look before. Kogi is happening almost 10 states boundaries. That means it's a very complex state. You have more than 10 to 11 states sharing common boundary. So, but you were able to manage to be able to restore relative peace in Kogi State today. In Anambra State, the governor, I'm very surprised that even the governor, whom he has his born, is not even in the meeting with what information we had yesterday. He didn't attend the meeting. And your Anambra is the worst hit by this insecurity. And the meeting of this such magnitude is called, and you are not there. So it shows that you are not even serious, or you don't know what you're doing, or maybe you've lost control of your government. If you cannot take action to term insecurity within your state, it shows the incompetency of your
Leadership.
Well, Ambassador Chiemelo, let's also point out that the Anambra State governor or his representative is not part of this conversation. So is not therefore available to immediately respond to the issue that we have raised. But we do know that there were reports when the governor said that at some point they were going to frustrate the sit-at-home orders that were issued. But after that, more violence was unleashed in the states. And why that is happening is what we are discussing. Paul Gwaza, one issue here, two issues actually. The governors, when they met yesterday, said that those who were issuing the sit-at-home orders were not necessarily residents in the Southeast. They described them as persons who are in the diaspora and that they were not in touch with the reality back home. It's curious that people in the diaspora will be issuing directives and then the directives will be obeyed. And those who are in situ and therefore in charge would say, look, disobey the orders, but nobody would respond to them. That's one. Why do we appear to have that situation? Against the background also of what has been reported, and I have not read any rebuttal just yet, Senator Einaya Abaribe was quoted as saying, I think yesterday, that it is not only IPOB that is a separatist group in the Southeast, that there are some 15, several. We know of Maso, but there are several other separatist groups operating in the Southeast. Does this provide an indication of the magnitude of the problem that we are dealing with?
Yeah, so the point of entry for these concerns is to look at the space that we have over the years created for ourselves. And I think that it boils down to us looking at governance, whether government is about certain categories of people or it is about the broader Nigerians. And I think that that is where the issue is. Now, if you look at, in terms of disconnect and the processes for emergence of leadership, whether it is, especially in the Southeast, where the people are not only enterprising, but these are people that are independent-minded also. Now, so if you look at within that social formation, you know that you will naturally have such a situation where you determine who gives the order. Recently, we are having a conversation, and the issue is that across the world, the state is confronted with a very serious issue of managing. It's not about Nigeria or Southeast issue. It's across the world that the man, the citizen of a state, want to determine his own destiny by himself. The social media inform his own perspective and his own authority and determine how he plays allegiance. In fact, even our children will now tell you what they feel is the right thing to do. They feel that they have allegiance to their own friends. Your own perspective is not what you want to impose on them. And so for our leaders, I think we need to know what is the situation on ground and to know that the citizens you are ruling are no longer the citizens of yesteryears who are governed by somebody will come and dish out order and they then obey hook, line, and sinker. These are Nigerians of modern days, and they look at what is happening globally. And I think recently we are discussing about what happened in Afghanistan and whether it is possible here is because, again, is the nature of authority. These people, and as Chief rightly noted, the processes for emergence of leaders is always a concern for every Nigerian. And so if leaders emerge and they don't emerge in a legitimate way and they give out instruction, the natural concomitant is that people will not obey such orders. But then you look at the economic dynamic of the country, broadly speaking. It is he that gives out, take responsibility for your day-to-day survival, that you naturally obey. If the diaspora, if you look at, even if you go to the Ministry of Finance, you look at the turnover from the diaspora. Some of it is not entering their banks. They are sending money to these people to respond to their own concern. Nigerians are calling their brothers abroad to please help me. I've not eaten today. I need to pay my children's school fee. I need to pay rent. Now, if this person tell you not to go out today, then you will naturally won't go out because he is the one taking care of your school fees, paying for your rent, paying for everything. So I think our government, both at the local government, at the state level, need to know that for us to be able to fully obey, they must show some level of they must own up to their own responsibility. There is a whole lot of gap. Not about us paying tax, it's about them also doing their own part of the roads are collapsing, utilities are no longer tenable in terms of water, in terms of electricity. In fact, we don't even know what is happening with our gutters. Every gutter is just blocked all over. Erosion houses are collapsing even in the southeast because of erosion, and nobody is talking about it. Diseases are all over. People are dying of diseases like cholera, which has to do with poverty actually. And so if somebody is sending money from Canada, you will definitely obey him. That is one interesting thing there. Then the second arm of your question.
We don't know whether the money is coming from Canada. It's not.
No, it's just an example. Just for instance, if somebody is sitting in Canada and sends somebody, yeah, so somebody out there will definitely send the money, and then you will naturally want to listen to him. Now, the second arm of your question, in terms of the proliferation of non-state actors that are, for instance, that are actually in charge of the space, not only in the southeast, but all over the country. These actors are all over. Everybody is in charge. I think yesterday we were even talking about who is in control of the garage in Lagos. Yeah, so the person, you don't think that the Oba of Lagos is in charge. There is somebody who sits there and determine what happens there. Recently, even in Zamfara state, we know that non-state actors are saying, pay tax to us. Give us this tax. So it's also happening in Southeast that there are proliferation of people taking authority, determining what is happening in their own spaces, controlling who give them money, determining who will enter that street, determining a lot of things. IPOP is just the face that we see. But if you do an analysis, and we have done the research, we have discovered that there are a lot of non-state actors in charge of this thing. You know also that we no longer hear about armed robbers. We no longer hear about these things because why? The broader banditry has actually taken over. If there is a joke in the social media that are you just committing armed robbery? Or I better fall in the hands of armed robbers than to fall in the hands of bandits. So if there is a broader problem, the other ones fizzle out. I think the other, what Senator is talking about is that there are people in charge of, touts in charge of garages, touts in charge of streets, touts in charge of communities, and the exact authority determine who enter the community and who pays what to whom and at what time. And I think it's a very serious problem that is at hand. But again, it's for Nigeria as a country to begin to work on how to get back its citizens. We must work on getting back our citizens. And the best way is to ensure that this government is working. Provision of amenities, being concerned about the problem of our people is very critical for us to get back Nigerians.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gwaza. Let me take the question to Great Imo. Great, earlier on, you described those perpetrating the violence in the Southeast as unemployed youths, youths who do not have, any solid means of livelihood. I've also heard people, describe those who commit those crimes as unknown, gunmen. People also say most of them are not Igbos because the Igbos place a lot of, importance on the sanctity of life and property. So such killings, go sense are not, cannot be identified, with the Igbos. So my question is, do you think these are purely politically manipulated, politically motivated, scenes or incident? Do you think there is a fifth columnist, as Mr. Gwaza has also indicated that there are, non-state actors also, in the southeast?
Well, these possibilities exist, starting with the fact that once the governor of Imo State, Governor Hope Uzodinma, once said on national television after the deadly attack on the prison facility and the police headquarters in Imo State, that about 400 of those who were arrested, some of them were not Igbo. And that also is a dimension to it, because we also remember that we're having a conflict somewhere very proximate to the southeast, which is Ambazone, and a lot of arms and interaction is going on between those areas. That is one. Number two, also, knowing the nature of politics in the southeast, the fearsome nature of politics in the southeast, a lot of young people who were armed to fight for power on behalf of the political leaders, some of them, after the elections, they were abandoned on the street. Yes, it is not natural for an Igbo man to engage in violence, because Igbo man likes to work hard, enjoy hard. But we found out that it was long in coming. Some of these Igbo young chaps who are involved had actually been made into monsters. I mentioned yesterday the parental, poor parenting or failure of parenting in the Southeast. A lot of young people, we know those days growing up, the way our parents will query every of your movement, your activities, what you do. I'm surprised that we're beginning to have parents who don't care, literally. And then secondly, when these children are abandoned on the street, there are these elements, minor elements, who begin to recruit them and engage them. Some of them are now into drugs. You go to villages, a lot of young people just smoke their life away. And some of those are driven by fear of unknown. Nobody's guiding them, nobody's encouraging them. And then they become recruited into political thuggery. And then after the election, you abandon them. During the election, you are giving them some stipends with guns they have with them. And also, you look at also another issue you must take note of. In the last few years, there has been increase in cultism activities in the Southeast. Increase in the cultism activities in the Southeast. Some of the issues that are driving the involvement of young people in cultism is that they were forming those associations as a means for protecting themselves, as a measure, to go between. Some of them believe that when you join these core groups, you are protected whether you're on campus or off campus, because then we used to think it was only in the universities. Now there's cultism in communities in the Southeast. Sometimes the violent crises you see are also cult violence, where one group that wants to dominate the space begin to fight the other group, and depending on who has more weapons, and sometimes retaliatory factors. And these politicians know these people. Sometimes they recruit them individually, say, okay, I can pay this group to work with me because they have arms. In some other cases, they get them arms to fight each other. All of this is geared towards power engagement. And the more you do this, and without hope, as many more young people are without job, they are tempted to join, thinking there is something in it. So once this continues, the nature of Igbo man is being altered. Seriously, is being altered. And now, let me repeat again, the failure of leaders to understand that these things are happening, why they are focusing on material acquisition, acquiring more wealth, to want to impose themselves on their environment, they have lost sight of these things. They have no plans. Okay, look at, you're talking about Ibubago. This will be the third time an official statement is made by the entire Southeastern governors, the group. They have said before, we are setting up a Ibubago, and it appeared nothing happened. After there was an incident in Owerri, they came back again and said, oh, we are going to make it happen. Then afterwards, nothing happened. Now they are coming back to say that. Does it not tell you something? These people have been unserious minded about solving the problem of the people. They have been on serious minded about having economic blueprint, a blueprint that will set the future of the state, of the environment where they lead. It is about their own selfish interest. They've not spent time trying to understand these people. They are much focused on hijacking power, getting the material benefit, the power, the accolades that come from it, and nothing more. And like when Mr. Gwazo was talking, understanding the psychology of the people you are dealing with will help you. Igbos are Republicans. Igbos will, in all of their generation, Igbos have refused to bow to anybody. Igbo's way of doing things has been through consultation. From Umuna to the kindred to the community, decisions are made based on shared interest, shared value. You must discuss and they must challenge you
What has,
and arrive at
what has
solutions.
ruptured that now? What has ruptured that and therefore created the kind of challenges we are confronted with today?
Okay.
That issue of consultation.
Yes. What happened is that don't forget that after a while we had the long years of military rule, and the Nigerian state was run through sustained coercive instruments, and it percolated down. So the generation of leaders who came to power by 1999 were stooges of most of those military people, and they did not understand that in a democracy, consultation is part of the key. If you remember, during the lives of Michael Okpara, even Mbakwe, immediately after the war, within a period of 4 years, transformed the old Imo states beyond everybody's imagination. After the whole entire space was raised down, what happened? There were involvement, engagement. But these 30 years of military rule began to alter the minds of people. That is a whole generation. A whole generation. And when these people came, especially this generation of Igbo leaders who happened on the southeast, because a lot of intellectuals in the southeast didn't think that the military were going, including those who worked with Nadeko to fight the military occupation of Nigeria. They didn't take it seriously. So we had actually almost the worst of us taking over power, because they were guys running errands for military people, and they believed that their masters will help them, and that was how they hijacked power. And because their own this mental development to a great extent does not, and all that. So what did they do? After they left power, they kept fostering their kind. And now, the more democracy matures, the more people are beginning to realize that we thought this thing was a joke, but it's beginning to become a culture, and it can't work here. Because there is that instinct of an Igbo man to resist oppression, to resist imposition, and without understanding this, even when I was telling someone, when you go to Southeast, you find out that when you deploy military and police, what you see is a gamut of roadblocks and use of harsh languages on the people. Sometimes when you are talking to them, you're talking to them like an occupying force. So you don't get their buy-in. Even when the military is there, they may have information to give you, but because they feel that you are just imposing yourself on them, you are just dealing with them as if they don't matter. It is actually these natural reactions that make the federal government or the military authority or the security agents not to get the buy-in of the people. Southeast is not that massive. If a ragtag group can go into Newi, a very busy space that's literally drive in and drive out, and constitute that havoc and working without people say, oh, this is where they went to, something is wrong. You are not working with the people.
Great, Timo. Well, I mean, it's like saying what you have said is great. And that's your name, actually. Thanks a lot for your perspective, and gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
We're providing, I hope our viewers are also getting the illumination that our three guests are further providing today. We're going to take a short break now. When we return, of course, we continue with the conversation.
I'm the Chief Resident Engineer and Project Supervisor of the Second Niger Bridge Project. The Second Niger Bridge Project is a project that has been conceived for a very long time, but it has finally come to life during this present administration. This project has a lot of socio-economic benefits, and it has impacted positively on the lives of the host communities, both in Anambra State and Delta State. The people are very happy. The host communities, they partnered with us because apart from the social benefits, indigenes are also employed on this project. We can see how their lives are being improved.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Iheanacho near post and scores.
The Super Eagles of Nigeria will look to continue their excellent start to the World Cup qualifiers when they take on Les Fauves of Central African Republic. Will Les Fauves pull off a shock on the home soil of the Super Eagles? It's Nigeria versus Central African Republic at the Tesla Balogun Stadium in Lagos, Nigeria on the 7th of October, showing on the network service of the NTA and AIT from 4:30 p.m. with live radio broadcast on Cool FM, Wazobia FM and Nigeria Info. You can also join online at sporty.com and NPFL TV. The FIFA World Cup qualifiers are proudly brought to you by BetNiger and supported by MTN, Coca-Cola and Dettol, proud sponsors of the Super Eagles.
All right, we've been having conversation even while the commercials were playing, and it's been a very intense conversation we're having, really, and that's why I like to again, appreciate all the guests. But I'm taking my question to great Imo Jonathan. Great, we were speaking off camera, and I asked you why it appeared that Imo State is the center of all the crisis. Why do you think that is so? What is it about, especially that junction? There's a junction called Ayara Junction where most of the incidents, are said to have happened. What is it about Imo State that is making it, the center of war?
Well, it will appear that the trigger for Imo State was actually politics. And let's be sincere here. The way and manner the governor emerged, the governor of Imo State, a whole lot of political stakeholders were not happy about it. But I expected that having access power by any means, there should be stakeholder engagement. You need to relate with your people. But at the time, he felt that the governor was literally uncomfortable in his space as a governor, and maybe he needed to impose himself seriously. And this is one thing I want to say, if the governor is listening to me. The singular act of inviting the military to Olun actually made the people of Imo State angry with the governor. If people are not telling him that, let's say it on national television, even the federal government needs to know that. As of that time, I didn't think there was any need to have engaged the military, and not even to the extent of bombing a space in the southeast. Mind you, Igbo people went through 3 years of horrendous war. The appearance of violence in their space would definitely make them jittery and angry at you, and whoever that initiated it is actually going to be seen as enemy number one. So even, let me say, Rochas governed that state for 8 years. And you may not judge, I'm not going to judge his other performances, whether he did well in terms of road and all that. But Rochas was able to hold the peace of Imo State for 8 years. Not forgetting that before Rochas, under Achiku Denwa, there was a military involvement in Imo State between 2003 and 2006. A lot of young people died when you were dealing with Massop. Then Rochas came and was able to manage the peace of the Southeast. And if I don't like it when people go on ego trip, if you know you can handle an aspect of your governance, you can call people who have experience in doing that and rapport with them. That is why we talk about consensus building when it comes to governance in the Southeast. You can't do it alone. And now, when these things have happened over time, even when you are supposed to take the breath away from these violent actors, you couldn't do it because you have created more sympathy for them. When people felt that their children went to market and were gone down, and innocent youth died out of in the trajectory, And they are not going to feel happy about it. They are not going to give you information. They are not going to sympathize with you. They are going to allow you deal with it. As I'm talking to you right now, sincerely,
Yes.
FMC Owerri, there are dead bodies of young people there that have not been buried. Nobody knows who they are. People are afraid to speak. Don't have the people you can who will be afraid to talk to you. Don't lead the people when the people feel that you are their enemy. It's not to say that we should encourage violence. No.
You know, great, Timo.
Yes.
Thanks a lot for your perspective. Again, we are pressed for time, but
Yes.
this is a very important issue. I would like Ambassador Chiemelu to respond to two issues that are on the table. Paul Gwaza did say that part of what is required is to win back the citizens. And when Gretimo was speaking, you were nodding in agreement that part of the Igbo spirit is consultation. And my colleague Claire was also in agreement by nodding to say that you have a bottom-up approach. I read some of those things in Chinua Achebe's books, even though they said it was fiction. But in the reality is you see consultation from one category of, from one age group or one group to the other. So my question, therefore, is as follows. As part of the measures, whether short-term, medium-term, or long-term, what can immediately be activated? Is it the consultation mechanism? How do you also ensure that the kinetic approach, because you have a lot of guns, there's lawlessness in the place, how do you ensure that the kinetic approach doesn't become counterproductive, you get the people's buy-in?
Thank you very much. Just like I said earlier here, that our problems are local. The issue of security has to be done with local consultation. If you bring in military, like the way they launched military operation 2 days ago in the southeast, they don't know the area, the locality where these bad people are. They can even easily hurt innocent people. They don't know them. It happened previously when innocent people were killed. Because if they see any young man on the street, they can easily open fire. But the real people are not known. So for that, having said so, you need to deal with this issue through consultation. Consultation is about talking to the local government chairman, empowering them, making them to assert power within their locality. Then through the local government chairman, the traditional rulers. We've not given our traditional ruler a very robust role to play. But these are people who are very close to the community. If something happens in the community now, they will knock and cry or they will run to the traditional ruler. Traditional ruler knows almost every problem of his various communities. So if this bottom-up approach is being utilized, within weeks or months, or the 1 month, the next 1 month, you will see that the tension will be doused. The problem will begin to solve itself naturally because the real people have not been properly engaged to be able to deal with the issue. If there is zero disconnect between even the state government and the local government to the community. You have wars. During electioneering, they will begin to empower youth leaders, world leaders, world ESCOs and all that. After election, they will leave them. And these people will be roaming on the street. There will not be no engagement. Have you ever had any of the governors calling for workshop? Previously, in 1999 to 2003 to 2007, I think you see some governors sometimes, they'll call youth seminars. You engage the youth, the men and women of the community state will come together in one umbrella, discuss with them, tell them the policies of the government. Let them be part and parcel of your policy-making governance. Make them to know that they are part of the decision-making in your governance. Engage them. Let them be part of your governance. Talk to them. But they are not talking to any of them. They have passed legislation in the Enugu yesterday, and they have come back home. Watch and see in the next 1 week, you see if there's any implementation that will be done. You won't see any implementation. They have done this over time. Ebubag, just like Great Imo I mentioned, this is the third time they are mentioning Ebubag, and they have not even seen the president anywhere in the southeast.
Okay.
Well, they say
That's a-
Bugagu, they have given themselves a December 31st deadline for this year to be sure that they can activate the Bugagu.
That is what they said. Let's watch and see the implementation, because months ago it was launched in Owerri. They had their meeting.
And we must be careful. The way and manner they are going about Bugagu is looking like you setting up your army to fight your people. Because the Bugagu have not succeeded simply because he has not gotten the buy-in of the people. So you sit in Enugu, you've mentioned it the first time, those few political rascals and touts who have worked with the governors were selected and you formed it as a Bugagu. Where are the youths? You should, the structure of his involvement, of his existence, what do they look like? Why don't you make it a career base where it is not in the absolute control of the governor, where it could be domiciled in the Ministry of Home Affairs or something like that? So when people get into a Bugagu, they are getting into a career engagement where they can even grow in rank and they earn salaries month and also have a faith of ending up as a career civil servant. You know, the uniform, the way and manner of engagement. All of these things are not taken into cognizance. You just engage your political touts and you put them in a group, you call them a Bugagu. You still will not get solution. Rather, it will end up being a machinery or a team set up to fight those who don't like what the governor is saying. Make a Bugagu people owned. That is the solution.
Chairman.
All right, Chairman.
Yes, thank you very much. You see, the Bugagu thing, just like we're discussing on the background, Bugagu thing, maybe it seems like what Getty was saying. Let it not turn out like Bakassi, because I could remember in those days when Bakassi was formed. Initially, they were doing well, but as you know, the delay using that of their positions to attack innocent people, settling family matter. You see husband and wife quarrel, somebody will go to Bakassi and call Bakassi, they will bring a family man and lie it and flog the person and they will beat up the person. So I don't understand. There have to be a clear-cut operate of the way they want to run their Bugagu, because they've not even given the full details of how they want to manage it and how they want to fund it. First and foremost, if you want to set up a company or want to set up a business, you have to do the feasibility studies. You have to analyze the cost of setting it up and the cost of managing it and the cost of running it before you begin to think of making profit. Have they been able to work out the modalities on how the recruitment processes? It matters a lot. The recruitment processes matters a lot. You don't just proclaim a Bugagu, a security outfit, without having a framework of how are the criteria for you to be able to recruit those people you want to use.
That would
And those people you're giving the
I'm sorry to interject. That would be founded in law. Because elsewhere where they have set this up, say Amotekun, for instance, is derived from law. So the law will set up the structure and so on and so forth, and administrative issues. Let's very quickly, Gwaza. I just wanted Gwaza. You know, part of what we know about the Igbos, for instance, part of their anthropology, outside of Igbo land, is it on Sundays or which days of the week where they hold their town unions meeting? They don't play with it, which is part of the consultation that you see them make. You know, and the women also have theirs. I don't know whether it's Umuna they call it, but when they are having ceremonies, you see them in. Sorry, this is Ashwebi is Yoruba. You see them, and so how might these anthropological features be harnessed in this time of crisis? One, the issue of consultation, and then the point you raised about winning back the citizens. And then the caution that we have heard now that, look, if you don't have the buy-in of the citizens, taking all the cruise missiles in that place, you are not likely to succeed.
Actually, I'm not a fan of people that said we need to give traditional rulers constitutional or any statutory backing for them to operate. What I know from my study is that at times the legitimacy and the acceptability of a leader weigh large or larger than even the one that is recognized by the law or even given some stamp of the law. And so I believe that these traditional rulers and indeed some of the non-formal or informal institutions that we have across can actually play a critical role in ensuring that we are able to win back our citizens, both not only in the Southeast but across the country. And I think we need to do that. But again, it is for our political leaders to begin to recognize these structures and these networks, and to be able to maybe incentivize them to ensure that they play those critical roles, not necessarily creating any legal framework for them to operate, but in the structure of governance, broadly speaking, you ensure that you activate these structures so that they will be able to work. And I think that just like Chief has rightly, Ambassador had rightly alluded to, this bottom-up approach, we must ensure that our community structures for consultations are activated. We need to activate it deliberately, and I think the Ohanaeze has a critical role to play in this regard. When we do that, we are sapping these non-state violent actors of their own resources in terms of the manpower, in terms of their ability to begin to recruit people to confront the state. So state can do that in withdrawing the people, sapping the people and sapping the energy, so that then they won't be able to unleash violence on the community. I think that is what you have identified is critical for ensuring peace in the region. Thank you.
Adding to what you have said, but it acts as a result of the Igbos community meetings. Actually, that consultation is still going on. If you come to anywhere, all over the country, if not just in the country, even in the United States, even in Canada, you will see Igbo meetings. They do that meeting once in a month. Maybe some take their own last Sunday of the month, something second Sunday of the month, and so on. It trickled down to even the community. After having a village, a town meeting, they still have village meeting. After having the village meeting, they still have kindred meeting. Even from the community to the state, even those who are, even in Abuja here, some villages in the southeast have bought land, built their own hall. My village have just secured a hall. We are launching by this month, a few weeks to come. We are launching our hall.
Yeah, so you launch it, and then we get great ideas from those meetings.
What comes out of those meetings are actually not being used by the state governors.
That is
going forward. I would suggest.
Sorry, great. Just give us what you think we measure we can activate in the immediate. In just 30 seconds.
The immediate.
Yes.
Since the governors of the Southeast are lost the sight of that immediate thing that needs to be done, I think federal government need to convoke in what they call Southeast Youth Conference. Involve party leaders, youth leaders, community leaders, religious leaders, bring from the market unions and a youth conference. Have discuss with them. You don't need to, there's no ego about it. If the governors can't do it, you should do it, because when you can have a framework that have a way of getting representative that is fair enough, and the information you will share and the solution will be taken back to the communities. Since these governors are not doing it, federal government should do it. The Minister for Youth Affairs should convert. Don't say it's an APC thing. Abga youth leaders from local government, from APC, from PDP, then from market, from these to keke drivers, make them be representatives of the people and have a conference, and they will tell you more. You will be amazed. And God will bless Nigeria.
All right, great, Imo Jonathan from Abia State, very vibrant public relations and media consultant. I'd like to appreciate you sincerely for your contributions. Ambassador Obizoba Chiemelo, Director General, Strategic Planning and Implementation, Ohanaeze Ndigbo, General Assembly Worldwide, also an Ambassador of Peace to the United Nations. Would I also like to appreciate your contribution to today's discussion. Paul Andrew Gwaza, Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution, many thanks to you for your incisive contribution to this topic. And indeed, we'd like to say God bless Nigeria, and we'd like to appreciate you also for staying with us and watching today's conversation on restoring peace in the Southeast. I am Claire Adelabu Abdurrazak. Join us again tomorrow, Thursday, for another edition.
Kingsley, your son, the Lord saying, take care of yourselves.